Hello, all, and welcome to tonight's whiskey review. Whiskey review. Oh, I can't believe I never did that before. So, what are we reviewing tonight? Well, we have quite a special something. Why? Because this is kind of actually difficult to find in Hawaii. Very difficult to find in Hawaii. There's recently been a release of the entire line, and of course, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be lucky enough to go and find like specialty ones. Uh, Also, too, it would not be wise of me financially to go and get like the single barrel foolproof version of this, but I am just happy enough to go and find the base version. To be honest, I would be interested in trying the wheat version, but this is the base version. And this is 46.85 ABV, which is about a little bit higher than 93 proof. No age statement on this, but reading up on it, it's blended from about bourbon whiskeys aged 4 to 8 years old. And well, let's go and read the label now, shall we? Small batch, gold on red. This is not going to be easy to read. Named in honor of the year Kentucky joined the United States, 1792 small batch bourbon is made from a marriage of a few select barrels carefully chosen by our master distiller. This refined bourbon elevates Kentucky distilling to exceptional new heights. Celebrated by whiskey connoisseurs worldwide, the subtleties of 1792 make it incomparably brash and bold, yet smooth and balanced. Now, on many of the whiskey YouTube channels that I go and watch, this is often one of the ones that's like listed as whiskeys under $30 that are must tries, in those lists. This is a very good whiskey for under $30, and even in Hawaii, it's still under $30, just a hair under $30. The variations of it, of course, are not under $30. And I was really quite surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And we're not going to be using the Glencairn glass today because change of pace. Why not? Why not? I haven't eaten yet, so my sense of smell should be quite good right now. Quite astute. Well, one hopes anyway. Here more. Okay. Pour it a little bit over our fingers here. A lovely golden brown. With fairly thick legs. Vanilla, bananas, and not Cavendish bananas, the old style Gros Michel bananas, that classic banana smell. Baking spice, cinnamon, hints of butteriness. To be honest, if I could surmise what this smell is evocative of, what this nose is evocative of, in a single description, it would be Bananas Foster. So fairly sweet, even for a bourbon. Underneath that, a nice oakiness. Somebody went and made a nice cooked banana foster, sprinkled it with some nice cinnamon and nutmeg and whatnot. It's just absolutely lovely on the nose. Well, let's get it onto the palate now, shall we? A bit drier on the palate than would be suggested by the nose. The nose is one of the sweetest bourbons I've ever smelled, but palate is pretty standard for feel, and taste of sweetness in regard to levels of perceived sweetness on the palate. And while you do smell that bananas in the nose, it's not really there in the palate, but vanilla definitely is. Exceptionally smooth. There's just some of that rye spiciness in the finish, which brings me to a certain note here. I've seen some reviews of this say that it's a high rye bourbon, but when I've actually seen, like the mash notes, it's only 15% rye on the mash bill, which doesn't really strike me as high rye. It's higher than the wheat portion of the mash bill, but it's still 70% barley, and I don't think that high rye should really be something, I think high rye should be like at least quarter of the mash bill or something like that. But, um, also in regards to my own taste things, it's like people talk about the mash bill, but sometimes it's like things that will have a lower posted mash bill will have a bit more of a perceived taste of either rye or wheat, you know, um, than what the mash bill actually says. While some things that have a fairly high mash bill, in fact, some completely different categories, some rye whiskeys have less, you know, certain aspects of the rye presence. In my case, really the spicy part, the peppery part of the rye, than some bourbons which are much lower amount of rye percentage in the mash bill. So it's not exact. So I give the information in general because it's interesting information. In this case, it's been described as high rye. To me, the percentage doesn't seem like high rye. I am not exactly sure if there is an exact percentage. You can go and tell me what constitutes high rye. But other than sort of like a pepperiness in the finish and quite a bit of baking spice in the nose and up front, not really so much rye presence here. Just a lot of smooth barley and barrel. This really goes down super easy. Slight hint of corn there. Definite definite perception of stone fruit, though I can't really perceive the type of stone fruit in the front to mids. Oak and char in the long finish, but not as intense as many other bourbons I've tried. It's just there as a taste note. and just a buttery, creamy, vanilla-esque smoothness that, you know, proceeds from the front to the finish. Not so much into the long finish. There's a bloom of pepper and spice there in the long finish. All in all, just very smooth, very sippable. Kind of wish a lot more of the distinct notes in the nose were either on the palate or in the top note here. But for a $30, for a sub $30 bourbon, it is one of the most smoothest sipping ones that I've ever had. Which really makes me curious as to others in the line. But like I said, it's going to take me some luck because I am not the kind, I follow like a Hawaii whiskey Facebook group, and basically anytime like a rare varietal pops up, you know, a wild Pokemon appears, everyone kind of in that group kind of converges and they're gone within like 2 or 3 hours. So unless I go and stumble across a very recent shelving of one of the less available varietals, I'm probably not going to run into it. Also, too, half the time, like, the stuff that's difficult to find is popping up either in a place that, requires club membership, like a Costco, or on base, one of the military bases here. Because military bases actually have a different distributor than the rest of the state does. So they actually have quite a few things that the rest of the state can't get. Mm. No bite, no kick at all, man. It's just wonderful. Like I said, I wish there was a bit more complexity there. But when it comes to drinkability, if you're not careful, you could do yourself some major damage with this because it is just so damn drinkable, so smooth. You know, you almost want to play that. You know, I forget what band it was. But I had Santana playing so smooth, and it's as smooth as Santana on an electric guitar. That's how smooth this bourbon is. Smooth as Santana on an electric guitar. And I think that's probably the most florid adjective description I've ever given of a whiskey in any of my years of reviewing so far, but I think it barely fits the bill here. And this is so smooth, I think I've consumed a well amount in almost 15 minutes, as is probably noticeable in my demeanor and in my ability to speak well. But yeah, let's go and wrap this up. Not as long as some of my whiskey reviews, but I think I kind of touched all the notes here. So 1792, really interesting nose. On the palate, not as interesting, not as complex, but hella drinkable, hella smooth. And at under $30, why not give it a try? It's easy for me to understand at least why this is on, the must-try bargain whiskey, bourbon, lists. And, yeah, if you're into bourbon whiskey, this is definitely one to go out and try, especially if you're a poor guy like me. Well, folks, that is your whiskey review for this evening. And now you're starting to see why I usually eat before I go and do these reviews, because they tend to kick me in the head if I don't got any food in my gullet, man. So, that is your bourbon whiskey review for this evening, and I better go and eat something, man. I better go and eat something. Cheers. What is it I'm eating? Steak and mashed potatoes with broccoli.